Hello and thank you for watching FIDH Explains, where we examine the war in Ukraine in light of international law. On 21st September, Russia's President Vladimir Putin announced a partial mobilization, which covers not only Russia but also the Russia-occupied territories of Ukraine. In this third video of our series, we explain why, by recruiting soldiers in the occupied territories, Russia is violating international law. Forced conscription in the occupied Crimea began soon after its annexation in 2014. Over the past 8 years, Russia has compelled over 30,000 Crimean residents to serve in its armed forces. In the first days of the newly announced mobilization, at least 5,000 Crimeans have already received summonses. The mobilization has disproportionately affected Crimean Tatars, a national minority harshly repressed by the Russian authorities since the beginning of the occupation. They received about 90% of all summonses in Crimea, even though they comprise less than 20% of the population. In parallel, Russia has carried out an extensive propaganda campaign about its military service throughout these years of Crimean occupation. Teachers were compelled to add military education to curricula even in primary schools. On 18 February 2022, the mobilization of men aged between 18 and 55 also began in the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. Within 2 weeks, the authorities raised the age limit to 65. They enlisted everybody they could get their hands on, taking men off the streets, out of their homes and workplaces, often without regard to their health. By mid-June, some 140,000 people have been forcibly mobilized in this manner. After the sham referendums on joining Russia at the end of September, followed by the annexation of the so-called republics as well as the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, residents of these regions have also started receiving mobilization summonses. The forced conscription of Ukrainians in Russia-occupied territory constitutes a blatant violation of international humanitarian law. Specifically, the Fourth Geneva Convention expressly prohibits the occupying power from compelling protected persons, nationals of the occupied state, from serving in its armed forces. Likewise, it prohibits pressure or propaganda which aims at securing voluntary enlistment. Illegal annexations cannot strip residents of the occupied territories of their rights, including protection against conscription. Moreover, these norms cannot be circumvented by Russia's efforts to force Russian citizenship onto the population. It should be noted that compelling a protected person to serve in the forces of a hostile power constitutes a war crime. Thank you for watching this episode, and see you next time in FIDH Explains.